Welcome. There is a sentiment that people do not want money to influence our politics, let alone our public policy. But society does not consistently hold this view across all instances. For example, people claim they do not want money to dictate outcomes, but gladly cheer on the war chests politicians use to win contests if the candidate is affiliated with their preferred political party and ideology. The reality is that some people do not want money to provide an opposing voice to their narratives and positions. Elections cost money. Identifying potential voters and connecting with them is not an easy task, or there would be a far greater turnout in our elections. So there is a need for either side to accumulate as much money as possible. Just spend it better than paying for celebrity concerts and incapacitated candidates. The real issue for the public is for those already in power. For those who have made a career of public service. How much is money influencing their decisions on a daily basis, and where is that money coming from? Some people come into government after successful private sector careers, where they were at the top of their fields. Others went right from college to local politics and advanced their way up. They say there is no real money in government, but some of our elected officials have surprisingly high net worths, and it is growing. Some people marry into wealth or have high-earning spouses. Others invest well or have good financial planners. Then there are those politicians that claim to not know how their net wealth grew during their time in office, which is a clear red flag. The argument about the influence of money in our policy may be more politics of convenience than a real issue. But there may be a legitimate reason to put in certain safeguards and transparency to ensure that there is no wealth generated from the areas of our economy that the person has direct impact on.
Our political mindsets are not always rational or logically drawn from facts, evidence, and data. What we may know to be right and true can be accepted or rejected not on its merit, but the emotional leanings of the audience. Something we do not do in our career fields or personal lives, but in our political opinions. At the end of the day, people in elected office are human beings at the core. They have families to raise and care for. And those that do leave office before being carried out on a gurney do have to make financial plans to care for their households into retirement. So, I am not completely opposed to any Republican or Democrat from managing their finances like any professional naturally would. Now, there is the issue of being in a position of the public's trust. That is a wrinkle that is of great importance in this social equation. The decisions they make on a daily basis directly impact our economic outcomes, our freedoms, and our ability to set a path for our own lifestyle of our choosing. So, ideally, there are no conflicts of interest or corruption that tilts the balance. There is always a concern that someone coming from industry may have the interests of the firms or industries that afforded them and their loved ones a desirable lifestyle. A legitimate concern. But, I am more concerned with people who come into money where there is no transparent connection between the growth in their wealth and how it's earned. We cannot have it both ways. Americans cannot want decision makers to have experience in the fields that they oversee, and also unjustly feel that they are by default compromised by having experience in the fields that they oversee. Having professional experience in the fields under your purview can be helpful to ensure that policies are done with consideration of what is best for the health of that industry. By default, all elected officials should be pro-growth and pro-business. It is only common sense to want jobs for the public, economic activity that fuels the public's revenue, and innovation that creates the products and services without needing to burden the public dime. Any politician that does not hold that view is unelectable regardless of party. That does not mean the government should not regulate or ensure that it insulates itself from undue influence from the decision-making from the powers that be. That is the delicate balance that is needed and not always so clear. Balancing the right for all people, including elected officials, to manage their personal finances with corruption, allowing industries and other sectors to effectively and efficiently grow, and maintaining the public's trust are all part of the equation. I see the calls for banning stock trading for public officials, which may make some sense, but there could be a downward impact by the purchase of a mutual fund or electronically traded fund that contains the desired asset, a diluted and indirect diversion of the intended outcome. There could be some guardrails like blackout periods from trading assets that stem from companies or industries that elected officials involved in actions that could directly impact the asset, good or bad, include families and close partners that could potentially trade on their behalfs. I think the biggest problem is from people who experience these massive gains in net worth and they have never worked outside of public office. They may have gone from different levels of education right into the path of public service, and then their net worth skyrockets when they are in an elected position conveniently. A person who previously had wealth or is known to have the financial skill set to grow wealth can be easily tracked than a person who claims to not know where their personal wealth came from, only to find later they have investments in industries completely reliant on government subsidies. Something that should also be considered is the impact of public policy. In any action, there are people who benefit and others who may face some harm or have the outcomes muted. If the vast majority of the public benefit, then it is more beneficial than when a fringe benefit and the cost is an anchor to the vast majority of the public. We pretend we do not want money to influence our politics, but those voices are kidding themselves. You can speak about oligarchs and billionaires, but you probably should not be partying with the same or paying them to hold political events for you. Just be honest and not hypocritical. If it is fine for you, then stop projecting negative connotations on those you oppose. A big thank you to all of you in the audience. Your viewership is appreciated and valued. Please follow the Christopher Peter Review on social media and continue to visit www.crcreview.com for new episodes of the Christopher Peter Podcast and the CRC. Thank you once again. Until next time.